So this is the active shooter response training part 6. In this part, we're going to continue with additional military tactics, but we're also going to watch a video about a real event that occurred in Seattle, Washington, where a shooter came onto a college campus and killed one person and wounded several others. Following that discussion of this real event on the Seattle campus, we will go back to additional military tactics that are recommended for consideration, and especially the first tactic will be referenced back to the video content. I just make you aware that in this video, from the closed circuit television camera footage, there is a young female student who is shot by the suspect. She is shot in the upper shoulder area, but she is able to leave the room and get medical attention, and she does survive.
Gunman kills 1 and injures 3 at Seattle University. A man went on a gun rampage at Seattle Pacific University on Thursday afternoon, killing 1 person and injuring 3 others. The lone shooter entered Otto Miller Hall, the university's science, engineering and math building, shortly before 3:30 p.m. and opened fire at students in the foyer. As the assailant stopped to reload his gun, a student working as a building monitor pepper-sprayed him and knocked him to the ground. Other students jumped on top of the gunman and disarmed him. The shooting claimed the life of 1 20-year-old man, while 3 others were injured, with 1 in a critical condition. The unidentified shooter is now in police custody. There was initial confusion over the identity of the student who tackled the gunman, as police at first believed he was a second shooter.
Jesus Villahermosa is president and owner of Crisis Reality Training, and with 3 decades of SWAT and law enforcement experience, he is an expert when it comes to active killer survival. Welcome, Jesus. Now, let's roll this video and talk about what we are seeing in this video that we just got today.
Sure. Well, you know, we have a couple of students seated here. We have one at the top and we have one at the bottom here in the bottom right. The shooter comes in and he actually points the gun at this victim, but what's interesting is the victim doesn't even respond. His hand is on his elbow. He's like, really? And they're exchanging a conversation here, and neither one of these students is moving, which is really quite shocking. I mean, this is a weapon. You don't want to be in this room, but no one's really moving. And so he's pacing back and forth, having a conversation, when within a few seconds here, we're going to have a young female walking down this stairwell. And again, he's still talking. He's looking to see if law enforcement is responding because he's already killed 1 person. And here comes the female down the stairwell. There's some slight exchange here, but he raises his weapon, and then he shoots her. She reacts. She's still standing, and she's confused. But now notice what these 2 do. They immediately, now they leave. They realize he's reloading, and now here comes Mr. Meese. He pepper sprays the shooter. Notice he grabs the weapon, takes him to the ground, and he literally wrestles that weapon away from him. Just extremely heroic actions here. But then he has the presence of mind, and he figures, you know what, I'm going to take this weapon, and I'm going to secure it back in this office because he's pepper sprayed. Notice the gunshot, the gun shells are on the, shotgun shells are on the floor there. He's now wiping his face, but look at this. He comes back out, he does a little peekaboo here to make sure he's not armed again, but now he's pulled a knife. So he tackles him from behind, he wrestles the knife away, and notice how the knife comes sliding across the floor, and he holds him, and the knife is right there on the floor next to the shotgun shells. And he just holds him there. He literally just holds him. He's still affected by the pepper spray. And what's amazing about this is just the casual nature of which this large gentleman walks up, goes down, he helps him secure. By the way, he kicks the knife away, which is a smart thing to do. And now they're just going to hold him here. And so it's just really amazing when you look at the reactions to this shooting.
The shooting played out on June 5th, 2014, on the Seattle Pacific University campus. The alleged gunman, Aaron Ybarra, is accused of shooting 3 students. 1 of them died. King 5 obtained hours of security footage through a public disclosure request. In a video date-stamped May 19th, more than 2 weeks before the shooting, you see Ybarra getting a tour from a student, scouting out the campus. He told investigators he focused on Otto Miller Hall.
But I used 2 girls to give me a private to her. I didn't even have to ask. I acted like a transfer student.
Then on June 5th, just before the shooting, a clip shows a clearer picture of Ybarra walking down a hallway inside Otto Miller Hall. Next, we jump ahead to after the shootings, inside the lobby where a man who prosecutors say is Ybarra is holding a shotgun. 3 students had just run out of the room, including a female student who had been shot. Ybarra appears to be trying to reload the shotgun as a building monitor, John Meese, comes out of the hallway, fires pepper spray at Ybarra, and immediately tackles him. Meese wrestles the shotgun out of his hands and takes it away, leaving Ybarra on the ground.
I saw him reloading, and I had pepper spray in my backpack, and I used that pepper spray to subdue him, take his gun away, and hold him down until the police arrived.
The gunman then pulls out a knife, which prosecutors say he intended to use to kill himself, when Meese returns and wrestles the knife away as well. Upstairs, a group of people hear the ruckus, and one man comes down to help Meese hold Ybarra down until police arrive and take him into custody about 4 minutes later. The FBI, which reviews mass casualty shootings across the country, credits Meese's courage and quick thinking.
So in this case of the Seattle Pacific University, I think that made a big difference, probably saved a lot of lives, because one person decided, hey, I'm going to physically challenge and subdue this assailant.
Now, authorities typically advise people to run and hide in these kinds of situations. They say fighting should be a last resort, but one you should think about if nothing else works.
If I had a choice to not feel this way, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have wanted to die. I wouldn't have wanted to kill people.
Ruling, the King County Prosecutor's Office has released surveillance video from the day of a Seattle Pacific University shooting.
In light of the club shooting in Orlando and other recent attacks. So Matt Lorch is here tonight with the video and some thoughts.
David and Marnie, we don't know if student John Meese acted on instinct that day or if he had some training, but there is no doubt he saved lives. Safety experts say we could all find ourselves in this exact situation, and we need to know what to do. Safety expert and former SWAT team member Jesus Villahermosa says fighting back often provides the best chance at survival.
The problem is we're still teaching passivity in these events where everyone is just fanning out, which then gives me even better target acquisition and less threat of being tackled, right? Because now I know my immediate circle is clear.
He says if you are in the direct line of fire, run. But how you run away can dictate whether you live or not.
If you're near the shooter, if you can see the gun, run. Absolutely. And certainly on the way out while you're running, try to find things to hide behind, move, hide behind, move. It's called duck, cover, assess, and move. What you shouldn't do, of course, is drop to the ground near the shooter and just duck and cover.
We knew John Meese was a hero. When you see him act, you know how brave he truly was in that moment.
The lesson learned there is don't freeze. Do something, whether it's run or attack the gunman. Just don't stand there and be an innocent victim.
And he had the value of surveillance cameras, so he knew where the guy was and he knew he was going to reload. He picked the exact right moment, he acted, and he was incredible.
A lot of us were in that building, and you know, he stopped him in the lobby. There were a lot of shotgun shells on the ground. Looked like he was planning to go the distance, and John stopped him.
I had to give that security props. He was pretty brave.
After watching the video, now we'll use Colonel Cooper's color code of awareness to analyze some of the actions by individuals in the video as a means of better understanding what different persons' reactions involved and how they might have been improved as a consequence of this information. This color code of awareness, I became acquainted with it from an article from the Domestic Preparedness Journal, which is an online weekly government publication, which I highly encourage you to consider reading. Colonel Cooper, a Marine colonel, identified 5 levels of color code awareness, and these 5 are white, yellow, orange, red, and black, and we'll discuss them in greater detail after this, but we'll also then, as we discuss each layer, relate it back to the video that we saw of the incident in Seattle. The black layer is panic. So panic prevents you from acting in a reasonable way. You need to change your situation, even if it involves just taking some minor action, whatever that action is, to start responding to the incident instead of potentially being frozen. So, in the case of the video, can you think of any persons of the 8 or so different persons who were displayed in the video at the scene of the shooting incident whose behavior represented panic? Myself, perhaps the young lady who was at first in the white or unprepared state when she came down the stairs and walked toward the shooter who was holding the gun. But then, just briefly, she may have gone into a panic situation. The time is so brief that you don't really know for sure if she was in a panic situation. There's no audio on the video, but she did seem to freeze just before being shot by the suspect. Once she was shot, however, she immediately went into the action stage and turned and left the building, and consequently, she received medical care and she was able to survive. The two gentlemen who are seated in the room to begin with, when the suspect walks in from the front door, they're both occupied with the books in front of them, sitting at tables, one closer to the suspect's location and the other further away. And they may have frozen temporarily. However, they become aware and alert. They move into the yellow phase and then the red phase shortly after becoming aware. But initially, they're in the white phase, and they do not really know what's going on initially until almost the time when the suspect shoots the young lady, although there does appear to be some exchange of words between the gentleman that's seated closest to the suspect before the young lady is shot. The yellow stage of being prepared, alert, and relaxed with good situational awareness, that clearly relates to John Meese, who was the assigned monitor for that room and was seated in the adjacent room where he had access to video monitors. He was clearly prepared, alert, relaxed, and had good situational awareness, which led to his ability to move quickly and effectively into the orange stage, in which he gained a situational awareness. And after the young lady was shot and the suspect began to reload his weapon, John Meese had prepared an action plan. He had acquired his pepper spray from his book bag, and he then moved quickly from his secondary room to confront the suspect and spray him in the face with the pepper spray, knock him down, and gain control of the weapon. So his actions were to fight, and he used his pepper spray and his physical force to initially gain control over the suspect and wrest away the weapon from his hands. And then he decided to take that weapon into another room and secure it so that it would be not available to the suspect. In the meantime, the suspect began to arm himself with a knife. So he again was in orange action of situational awareness. He again approached the suspect in the red action and kicked the knife out of his hand, and he was able to gain control of the suspect physically before persons from upstairs came to help. Now, the three people from upstairs that you see in the video, two of which observed what was going on and decided to flee, which there's no criticism of their decision to flee. They assessed the situation and chose the run option as their solution, and they escaped. The larger gentleman, older gentleman, came downstairs to offer Mr. Meese assistance in restraining the suspect. He kicked the knife further away from the suspect's opportunity to grab it, and together they took the action of continuously restraining the suspect until the police got there. We didn't have this part of the training with this additional video initially when we began to offer this course, but our staff of LA County Department of Public Health, many of them were requesting that we add additional content about the fight option. And so the addition of this video and the discussion of how it applies to these color codes of Colonel Cooper is a response to that request from our staff to have additional information in the course about the fight option. Colonel Grossman was testifying before the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the combined branches of the military, and he was specifically addressing the question of the voluntary military and where they could hope to gain sufficient access to persons who were willing to volunteer to be the warriors, the soldiers that the military was looking for. And he had a little bit of he expressed a pessimistic view of his assessment of humankind, that in his experience, 98% of the people were sheep, and they were peacefully grazing and likely to panic when threatened and needed protection. He assessed 1% of the people were wolves. These were the criminals, psychopaths, and violent persons who lacked empathy. And then 1% of the people were sheepdogs. So these were the people who had the capacity for both violence and empathy, because they would be able to react to protect the sheep from the wolves. So this pretty harsh view of only 1% of the public able to act as sheepdogs kind of bothered me, because if I was trying to coordinate an assault on the suspect, I would be hard pressed to find additional sheepdogs to help me out. But I think about it in terms of my experience in Montana. I was familiar with the sheepdog, but then one year I saw llamas in the field with the sheep. So I talked to my rancher friend, and he explained that the llama is a herd animal. It's gregarious, it's tall, and it hates coyotes, which are the number one predator of the sheep. So the ranchers were using llamas to protect the sheep instead of sheepdogs. And then next year, I saw burros in the field instead of the llama. And I again asked about the burro, and he said, well, the burro's a herd animal. It's tall. It can see the coyote from some distance. That's what's true with the llama. It hates coyotes. And so the burro is effective at protecting the sheep. So for the limited purposes of protecting from the wolves, you need not restrict yourself to only the 1% who are the sheepdogs. You can think more broadly and recruit people for assisting you that have other talents that can help in that strategy. So we've now talked about 3 different military procedures. All of them involve a certain amount of situational awareness, from Colonel Boyd's OODA loop to Colonel Cooper's color code. And these are tactical decision-making tools that you can use to improve your response in an active shooter event. That concludes section 6. We'll do section 7, which is an application of lessons from emergency management. This is my contact information.